How are you?
I'm doing well. Tired, but
Thanks
doing
for
okay. How are you?
good. Thanks
Mm.
for willing to do this.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm so sorry that it took so long to like
Oh,
connect and get, and then I still missed it today, and then I still goofed it, but here we are now.
mhm. So I could just jump around then with your career so far.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll try to remember.
I don't know if the credit was right, but before voiceover, there was a short film called Rage.
That one's not mine.
Oh,
I've tried several times to get it off, and IMDb is really bad about editing anything. So I've never been able to remove it.
okay. And I know it started with One Piece, but
Yeah,
I guess would the Tenchi Muyo OVA be around that same time?
it was. It was. That's correct. I came in, the very first thing was One Piece. It was Walla for One Piece, actually. Um, and I just so happened to have played a name character during that Walla session because the format of it, since I was brand new, like it was my first dubbing session. I'd never done dubbing before. So Mike McFarland, very nice man. He was like, okay, we'll come in, we'll do the Wallace stuff, which means it's with all actors. So it's you and usually like three other people in the room, and you do all the crowd stuff and all of those things. And so he was like, we'll do the group stuff and then everybody will do their bits. We'll keep you last since this is your first like dubbing session, just in case it takes a little more time or something. So no one else is waiting on you to get done. I was like, cool. But by that time, a lot of the other a lot of the other bits that were needed for that session were taken up by the other people that were there. So the three other people that went before me. So he was kind of struggling to find like another character, just like one thing for me to do. And he was like, well, there's this weird rabbit thing. I mean, One Piece has a million different creatures in it, and sometimes they have names, sometimes they don't. It's wild. And at the time, we didn't know he didn't know that that character was recurring, and I think it was labeled, it wasn't even labeled as Gonbe. I think it was labeled something else, as some rabbit. So he was like, you can do this thing. So I went and I did it, and it's just noises, it's nothing like really. It was kind of strange to have been like the first dubbing thing to do because I didn't I didn't have words. It was all just he has a very peculiar meow that he does. And so that was like my first dubbing to picture experience, was just really reacting to picture. So we did that, and it was great. And then so left, and then maybe a week or two after that, I they called me. They were like, "Oh, that thing you did, it's actually like a recurring character. We didn't know. So you got to keep coming back in." Which was actually just, it was really fortunate because especially at that time, this was long before it's honestly, it's both harder and easier to get into the industry now just because of visibility. It's easier to meet people. The production timelines are very quick now. We're constantly needing people to come in, and we can come and try them, and then the project's out, and then the whole process repeats. But at the time, it was fairly closed. So you'd come in and like you could record a whole series, and then you'd go home, and that was kind of a lot of what was going on at that time. So me having to repeatedly come back into the studio on a character, and of course it's One Piece, so we couldn't really do the whole series in one day like we could do other series. I did have to keep coming back, and so that kind of kept me around the studio. I met a lot more people that way because I had to keep coming into the office. And so that was really fortunate because that also allowed me to meet some of the other directors there. Sometimes also they'll put you in if you've got like one little thing to do, like I was having just some Gonbe stuff. And obviously he doesn't have hours and hours of work. So sometimes they put me in a different Walla and so I'd work with a different director or things like that. So that's kind of how I got to meet people and work with different people. So it was really great and fortunate to have in my very first dubbing session ever to have a sort of, well, I don't want to call it a mistake, but it was like we just didn't know, right? Which is something that kind of happens now more frequently, because back then we knew more about the shows. Usually they were all out before we started working on them, whereas now everything is simuldub, right? So we don't necessarily know what's going to happen in episode 11 of a show, or who's going to be in that episode, or the twists and turns of that. And so you can now, similar thing to what happened to me, is book something that seemingly appears to be a bit character, a small thing, and then suddenly they're actually very important. And it's something that you can't, we just don't know. You like shoot your shot and you or the opposite happens too, where we think somebody is a very important character, but it turns out they're maybe around really heavily for 2 episodes and then they jet. So you can never tell anymore. But so that's another thing. So that's really fortunate for new actors now too. But yeah, Gonbe was my first, and he's a pretty wild character to have. He's a very interesting looking thing. But also One Piece. I love One Piece. I'm pretty vocal about how much I love One Piece. So that was also just really cool. And then you mentioned Tenchi war on how I always forget if it's Geminar or Geminar. It's been so long. That was a similar I had worked with him a little bit Walla based, and that one, those characters, I played Retta, I believe, and they were their names are based on colors. So she's red, and then I think one was named Buul or something. I remember I had to say it one time and it was terrible because we're like, Buul, I don't know. But she's supposed to be blue. And then I think the third one is supposed to be yellow. I'm not quite sure. And I don't remember her name. There was just these 3 girls that just sort of kept showing up. So a similar thing. They weren't like huge characters. They're really pretty on the side, but they did keep showing up. So I did have to come in a couple of times for her as well. And that was really fun because that was like, I want to say she's my first human character that I was recurring.
Mhm.
So yeah, and that was what's interesting about that too, is that after I did that, she's very kind of she's leans a little on the mean girl side. And so I booked that. And then after that, I booked what's her name? Akane.
Oh, Psychopaths.
No, not that one yet. It was
Oh, Good Luck Girl.
Good Luck Girl. Yeah. And I booked her, and she was also kind of a mean girl. And at that point, I started getting a lot of, I've done a lot of mean girls. That was kind of like the thing around that time. That's like what I was getting called in for a lot, was just like, oh, this person's really horrible. Let's call in Michelle Rojas. Like that's what sort of started happening after I got Reddit. It just sort of kept going. But Good Luck Girl was also Joel McDonald. He I actually auditioned for that one. That one was on audition, and I booked that. And I want to say that Cliff Chapin was the lead in that show. And I want to say that was the first thing he booked off an audition as well. But I think that was the first time he came in. It was that or Tokyo Ravens. I don't remember. Anyway, way back in the day. So that was kind of my first, a little bit larger character, was her in Good Luck Girl. And she was a lot of fun. And I still get characters like that. But I don't think I'll ever get away from it. But it's a lot of fun.
This is probably obvious too, but do you think that you have the most affinity with Tohka?
Well, listen, here we are again 10 years later, and we have another season.
Yeah.
Like the longevity of that, and also with her is, again, around that same time, after I did Good Luck Girl. I keep wanting to say Bimbo Gamiga because that's a Japanese. Good Luck Girl. A little bit after that, Joel again. Joel really called me in for a lot of stuff. It was really it was Joel and Mike for a long time is really all I worked with. But with Day Day Live, I auditioned for her as well. Honestly, and she's the central girl in this series. And at that time in my career, I was very new, and I was constantly surrounded by people who had a lot more experience than me, and all of those things, right? A lot of that self-conscious sort of stuff. But even so, I was like, I'll read for 3 characters. I honestly didn't think I would book her because she was such a big part of the show. I was like, I'll probably get, I might get, if I'm lucky, again, it's really booking a ton of stuff, but maybe another small side character or something like that. And then, I booked Tohka, and that was a huge surprise to me. And I remember talking to Joel about it, and he said that he asked me like what I was sort of using as the character motivations and things like that. And I guess I had a unique perspective to the way other people were playing her, because when I saw it, I was like, I see this as a person, because it's really kind of a fish out of water story. And I was like, I see her as a person that has been put in this world, and she's desperately trying to find a connection with someone. Like she feels alone. She's the only one that's of her kind. And so I saw her as a lot more than just sort of like an anime girl in an anime show. And I guess that perspective was a lot different than how a lot of other people played her. So that's another thing about auditioning. You never know what the director's really going to want. But it's also interesting to see like how people approach characters differently. And because we all bring a little bit of a different experience and a different interpretation to how we see things, right? So that was just me. And then that just happened to be what got me to book the character. But yeah, we're still people like the first season is a great season. I feel like each season has really kind of felt different from each other. Like if you watch that first season, you go into season 2, then it has a different feel. We're doing a little bit of a different thing. Then you go to season 3, again, somehow we're keeping it fresh, and I think it's really cool how they've been able to, a decade later, we're still keeping it fresh. We still have it. Each season has this sort of different vibe to it. And so that's been really cool. But also they've all been in different animation studios too, right? So I'm sure that's part of it, is, again, like I said, with the acting, like bringing something different. All of the animation studios, all the different staffers and everything like that, they're also bringing different things creatively. So I think that's kind of why we feel those differences.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of fun, and I haven't gone in for the current season yet, but I don't know I haven't watched the first episode yet. I know it's out. I don't know how involved she is yet. So we'll see. But also, as we go each season, like we get the new girls, right? It's always about the new girls, right? And Tohka was like, season 1 was the girl. As we go, she kind of is like, she's still here, but it's so much about whatever the new girl is, or whoever the new girl is. So now that we're 4 seasons into this, I won't be surprised if I actually don't go in very much for her, if she doesn't actually say much, because she's still the girl, but the central story is going to be more about the new addition to the harem.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really cool. It's really cool to have a like a show, same thing with One Piece, something that has that longevity to it, to be able to go that, and especially with this, like that was literally me starting out in dubbing, was around that time. I want to say I was working for maybe a few months, and then I booked her. So it was so early for me. and to have that, and then to still have my career 10 years later. And it's sometimes you look at it and you go, oh, like everything I know now, like how would I approach these lines and how would I do these things now 10 years later into my acting career, right? So on the one side, you're like, I probably would have done that differently now. I would have done this and that. But at the same time, you can kind of see your growth, like to have something you can look at like that and go, I can see how I've grown as an actor and as a person, and how different my life is now. So it's a really cool like memory to have of that. Yeah. But yeah, I do definitely have a lot of affinity for her. Just as, because I'm lucky that my first lead is on a show that's lasted so long. Yeah, I'm very fortunate.
And would your first more longer running character that was darker that you got to do more with was in Tokyo Ghoul?
Tokyo Ghoul, yes. Yeah, she was around. Oh man, that was real. Where that ended up, like man, it got. And what was also cool about that one is that my twin is played by Michelle Lee, who's a very good friend of mine. And actually, we have a little bit of a similar voice print. We vocally, because again in daily life, she's also in that, right? She's origami, and sometimes they'd they'd have to tell me, you sound too much like Michelle, which both of our names are Michelle too. They go, you sound too much like Michelle. You're going to have to do it differently or else we won't, especially in attack efforts and stuff. They'd be like, vocally, you sound too similar. We can't tell which one's doing what. So it's really cool, for us to play twins because we are vocally similar. And also she's such a dear friend. Like she is very much like a sister to me. So that it's really cool to be able to be in a series again. Long, it went for a while. Like it wasn't a 12 episodes and we're done. Like we had some growth in that, and being able to do something like that with a person that means a lot to you was such a great experience. But then also like seeing where they end up, because, and not to be like super spoilery or anything in this interview, but I did come in, I think what I'm talking about, and because they were like, we're not really sure if she makes a noise or not, but we're gonna have it just in case, so we'll have you record it. So I did record when she shows up again, so I did record that, and I was like, wow, that like escalated real hard. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to be able to do that. And again, I love Mike. Mike is also a dear friend. And being able to do that was it. Again, I say I'm so fortunate a lot because I am like, I know, especially now, seeing a lot of like newer actors trying to get in and maintain a career, and it is very difficult. Not that I haven't had to put a lot of work in myself, but there is always going to be an element of luck to any of this, and so I really have been fortunate to maintain all that.
And also related to that, I can probably guess what the answer is, but what's the darkest emotional headspace you've had to go for a character?
Man, well, technically for that it was. I couldn't say it was that was a kind of that was like more shocking, and it was a reaction. And so I personally, Michelle probably had to do a lot. That was probably a really tough thing for her. She was having to do a lot. As far as, man, that is the darkest, like the most, because I haven't played a ton of villains. I was 100% the main villain in something called Chaos Dragon.
Yeah.
She is just off the rails. Like she's 100% out of her mind 100% of the time. So she was a ton of fun to play, but she was also like a really different person, like a really different mindset for me to have to get into was with her, because she did have a lot of because obviously she's the villain, so but also just like a very demented sort of villain. So she always had these tricks up her sleeves. She was always talking to her sword. She was always she was finding this like sort of sick delight in a lot of things. So I would say she's definitely one of the characters where I had to get out of my usual and had to delve more into that sort of mindset of what sort of causes a person to think that way. I would say she's definitely up there. I'm sure there's another person that I'm blanking on, because when you go look at your entire career and you're like, well, I've played a lot of people. I'm sure there's another one in there. I can't think of it right now. I play a lot of moms. I play a lot of big sister types. So that sort of darker stuff. Oh yeah, I did Sayla. Sayla wasn't Lo Chunhua was definitely a lot. Sayla wasn't too bad.
Well, I know there's a number of things in Higurashi that were.
Yes,
That's-
I totally forgot. I forget. Because like, well, she's not a villain necessarily. I guess that's where my head was thinking villain. She's not a villain. She's definitely, yes, you're 100% correct. As far as like dark stuff, that's gotta be the limit. When they go to the school toilet, that was like, oh my God, really intense. The ladder scene, that was really intense. She has I think the one that really affected me the most probably was when she's so when she finally loses it, right, which is a first for the series, like that in this new series was in the previous series she never became the murderer, right? In this one she does. And what was so interesting about that arc was that she struggles with it, which is unique. Usually people, they start going, they don't really know what they're doing anymore. And it's just kind of like, it's 0 to 60 on all in on the killing stuff. But she somehow mentally maintains enough agency that she realizes what she's done, which is very unique to her in this story. So going back and forth from that and having to go so hard, when she the scene where she snaps the first time, and she chokes out Shion. That was a really difficult scene on both sides. That was a really difficult scene for sure, because the heartbreak that she has at the end of it was extremely emotional. So yeah, I think that as far as going places, and then again snapping back and forth between, she doesn't understand exactly what she's doing, or she's being taken over by this paranoia and acting in a way, and then snapping back to, what did I just do? That was me. How could I do such a horrible thing? That was really rough for sure. Yeah, that would probably be the top. That would take the cake.
And more on the technical side of that, was that pretty difficult to record a scene like that when you're playing both of them?
What we do for things where we're talking back and forth, what we'll do is we'll track one character and then we'll track the other character. And because it would just be too difficult to go back and forth, especially when you're screaming and then the other one like so quiet, and it like vocally it would be really stressful. So yeah, so we would track one. So then again, yes, I had to do those scenes twice, so I had to go through all that twice. And working on Higurashi in general, because I was also the director, was wild. Probably the most gruesome episode in the whole franchise. I believe is episode 16, Satoko and Rika, and she has the ceremonial hoe, and Rika wakes up to that, and it's very, very bloody. I had to watch, because here's the other thing, is that Higurashi started recording kind of when we were still figuring out pandemic stuff. And so what we initially did with recording, because a lot of people were doing a lot of different things, we didn't have the technology yet for everything to be more streamlined. What we had to do was every day I would get a print of the video with the audio we recorded. I would have to check the audio we recorded to make sure things were placed where I wanted it, because not only me, but also the engineer could not actually see where lines were placed. It was really wild. So I would have to review it. I'd have to then just through email describe to the engineer how to move it and stuff. It was very difficult. And but because of that method, it was a lot of back and forth doing that. I had to check it every single day. I had to watch that episode every single day. I had to watch that scene so many times. And I also time coded the thing. So I saw every episode of Higurashi so many times. And the very first time I saw it, which was when I was time coding it, I got sick. I had to step away. I got physically sick. And then the second time, same thing. The third time, same thing. But after a while, I was like, I have seen this so many times at this point. I got numb to it, which was really weird. So I was having to see these like really, really intense, gruesome scenes repeatedly, working on it. And so that was kind of difficult too. But because that is at a point and you get desensitized to it, you're like, how did I get to this point? But when you're just watching it over and over and over again, it's like your body's like, I can't I can't do this anymore. Yeah, it's so recording, I did have to watch that a couple of times. Luckily, by that time, when I got to that part in recording, we were definitely a lot better organized. I wasn't having to rewatch the episode every single day. We were past that point where things functioned a bit better. So fortunately, I didn't have to watch it a million times. Just weirdly, I think 16 ended up being the peak of that. And then at that point, we kind of fell off. But yeah, it was a really intense show. And I had to be I had to be exposed to those sorts of scenes a lot. So it was definitely stressful, even though I love that franchise. I love the games, I love the anime, I love the manga, I love all of it. It just, it wears on you because it's very, very intense content.
Mhm.
So even if you like it a whole lot, it's still very intense content for you to view and engage with.
Yeah, I can say personally that the ladder scene, I thought that was super well done, what you did.
Oh, thank you so much. It was, oh my gosh, that was a hard scene too. That was a hard scene to record. Just the pacing of it. We had to get the pacing of it right. We had to get, I had to have so much breath support to get through the rapid fireness that she was getting through and to build the intensity correctly. And it was, we did it a few times. It was very exhausting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What was the most high octane emotional moment for you in Wonder Egg then?
In Wonder Egg. Wonder Egg. Oh God. Wonder Egg. I cry. Well, I cried with Higurashi too, but oh God, it's Wonder Egg. that was a rough one too. Wonder Egg was a rough one too. It had a few places where it was pretty rough. And you know, the episode, probably the hardest episode, was the one where she loses panic in the way that she loses panic. That was another thing where I did get sick while we did that, and because I also have to play panic. So it's not just I had to watch it happen, and then I also had to do it. So it was really, it was really tough. I got sick during that, and I also got very upset because the way that they showcase it is so it's very detailed. It's very very close, and it's the moment of everything that's going on is terrifying. So they did a great job conveying all of that. I feel like they really make the viewer have those same emotions of terror and have the exact reaction they were going for. And of course I experienced all of those too. And again, even if I've seen it once and I see it again, until I see it a lot of times, I don't really get desensitized to that. So sometimes with stuff like that, it's tough to get through. That's probably was the most difficult, was that part, but also the episode with the trans boy was also very emotional. And though definitely it had all of the interactions had a much better feeling, because it felt you had more resolution and peace with that, because of the validating and everything in their interactions that they were having. So that was definitely it ends up in a much better place, whereas sort of the ending of that the panic stuff was really tough. But yeah, Wonder Egg is definitely a very tough show, just even as a viewer, right? Because it goes into a lot of topics that are hard. It goes into a lot of hard topics. So I think it was a great show. That I absolutely adore that show. I'm a huge fan of Wonder Egg. But yeah, that was probably it. Man, you're getting the hard stuff, man. You're just like, what was the worst time you ever had recording something? Do you remember how horrible that was? But I mean, we do these things, but I mean, and it's my job as an actor, right? To like feel those emotions and to convey those emotions as an actor. So I'm again very fortunate to be able to provide that experience for other people too.
Well, on the complete opposite side of that, probably my favorite role of yours is Hugh the Dark Algernon. And so,
oh right. Are you serious? That is a fun one, because that is another one of those where I don't get to do that a lot. Yeah. People don't really hire me for that very often, which is unfortunate because it's so much fun, and it's a vocal range that I very rarely get to go into, and it's just such a fun character. And it's yes, it is 100% the other direction on a lot of this other stuff, this more dramatic stuff that I do. And so when you get a character like that, you're just like, we're having fun, and this is just and even though the anime itself wasn't a comedy by any means, it still had a lot of comedic moments. It still has a lot of those fun things you get to do that you don't get to do in every show. I really love when I get to be funny. So that's always very, very enjoyable. Or the brattier I can be, or all those sorts of things. I love doing that. Because I personally love comedy. I love the dramatic stuff like Wonder Egg. But I also really, really love comedy. That's one of the things that I love about One Piece is that I'm a huge comedy fan. A bunch of the American stuff I watch, like What We Do in the Shadows and Always Sunny and stuff like that. I'm a huge comedy fan. So I love when I get to be able to be funny. So it's always a fun time getting roles like that. And again, I wish I got hired for them more because it really is so much fun to be in that range and play around.
Do you have a particular process for boy voices then?
Not really. It depends on the boy. So as far as like the process of boy voices, I try to I'll look at what the the Japanese did, some, but obviously I'm not going to sound like that one to one. So I try to look at what is the attitude of this boy, how old are they, would they be like a dopier boy, or would they be more like a little piece of shit kid, like those have different ways. Or are they very sweet? Are they 2, are they 10? So all of those kind of things is what I look at. And then of course sometimes the age thing is like in anime you have to go physically, like where are we, because they could be any age, right? But yeah, I look at all of those different things to suss out what I need to do. And I actually shoot, what is that? The show names are so long now. Kieran's the lead in it.
Oh, Requiem.
Requiem. Yeah. I got to be a boy in that one recently. It's the boy version of Brent Mukai's character, and I think his name is starts with W. Is that right? Wilhelm or something? I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But in that show, I got to be a fancy boy. So like, which is something very different. I've never done that before. But for that boy voice, it was that was another thing on top of it, where within society this boy lives, and because he had to have a different presence than a lot of kids that we would play in the regular world. And then vocally it was still a bit the same, like how old is he, and he has a bit more of a serious tone than a lot of kids have, so bringing elements like that into are other things you have to kind of consider.
What do you think in general so far is the case where you've had to alter your voice the most significantly for a character?
The most significantly, I think generally the higher I have to go. A lot of characters are around my own vocal range. Roxy is probably the one with the most longevity. That is a bit outside of my normal voice. But she's not too high up there. She's just like me, but like a little bit more. I did play in Three Leaves, Three Colors. There was Hiyori, and she's just like a dumb she's a dumb little kid. So she was pretty high up there. Minnie was a little higher too. In Fairy Tale. But generally it's kind of anywhere from kind of my regular speaking voice up into like more up here, and that's kind of about where most of my characters lie. Or if I'm a big tough woman and it goes a little lower. But I would say anytime, it's weird because usually it's like if I'm playing a bit, they'll be like, you're going to be this 5-year-old girl. That's generally the ones that are both hardest for me, and the ones that I have to change my voice for the most is like a little girl character. Those are probably the really testing my range is the tiny girls. I've gotten better at it. I couldn't do it for anything. I couldn't do it for the world. I've definitely honed it over the years. I've gotten a lot better at doing it. I can do it now, confidently, but it's definitely at the extent of my range. I would say.
Mhm. You have a cool character in a Noragami. Is there much of a story with that you can remember?
In Noragami, Aiha. I was so excited to play Aiha because she's very pretty. She's like this pretty princess, which again is like not a character I usually book. So when I got brought in for that, I was like, you want me to play her? Okay. So that was a lot of fun because again, that's a type of character that I don't get very often. And Noragami is a really cool show. She got to do she did a little bit of that good guy bad guy stuff. So we got to play sort of all of those different sides of her. But yeah, I was excited for that one because I was literally like, this is not who I thought I was gonna be, like being brought into the show. So it's always great when a director sort of lets you play outside of your type, because like I said, like a lot of characters that I play are close to my normal voice, which is common. It's always great to be able to do something a little more outside the box. Just getting some flavor in your life. So yeah, I was really excited for that because I mean, and even since like how many I did get to play, I have played more fancy girls since her, because I have Tomoyo's mom in Card Captor, but obviously she is a woman, so that's a bit different. But I did get to play in Sure Children. I can't remember because I remember there was some confusion on what the actual title was. But with her, I did get to play somebody again that was a little bit of a prim and proper and like out of her all out of sorts all the time sort of character. She was also very different from me. So I think that Aiha was kind of the beginnings of me playing some more characters that were of that type. So yeah, Aiha was great.
How'd you approach the duality of Boogie Pop?
Oh my god, I love Boogie Pop so much. Just no one understands how much I love Boogie Pop. I was so excited to play Boogie Pop. Just when I got called in for that, I was blown away that I got to play Boogie Pop. That was really cool. She of course is Boogie Pop is probably closer to my speaking voice. So then when she's not Boogie Pop, we had to kind of make her like more teenagery and so that we can have that separation. That was really cool. Everything Boogie Pop does is really cool. They can do no wrong. But and again, when we record those, we record one character at a time. So I didn't have to go back and forth. Though I think I did go back and forth a couple of times just because it was like, oh, like it's only a couple of lines. We'll just do it. Going between being a god person to being a teenage girl in the same show was a lot of fun too. God, I loved working on Boogie Pop. Like every single session was so amazing. And I like playing God. She's not the first time that I've played like a godlike character, but definitely the biggest one. It's of course an older show. Like it was from when did the original one come out? The 90s, I want to say. So just having that history on it too was really cool to be a part of that. And I got to be with Mike. I love Mike. So yeah.
Were you also a fan of Escaflowne before getting into it?
You know what? I actually was not. When I was a kid, because it came on like it came on Saturday mornings or something, whatever the block was. I can't remember what the block was called, but it would come on and I actually didn't watch that one. I was just like, I'm not really into it. And I didn't watch that one, but I was really excited to be in Escaflowne because it was something from my childhood. I was like, oh, we're going to redo Escaflowne. That's awesome. So I didn't watch it when I was a kid because I was just like, this is a funny enough, or I don't know. I watched like DuckTales and like Moncali Nights and Fighting Foodons and stuff when I was a kid. Like that was my Saturday morning cartoons, and then Escaflowne comes on, and I'm like, I don't know. Although that being said, like I love like Gundam shows, and I love war shows, and I love I think that it's always been harder for me to get into like fantasy. If it's sci-fi, I'm all in. But if it's like more of a fantasy show, like Record of Lodoss War or something like that, it's a little harder for me to get into. So I think that's where Escaflowne fell for me. It was more on the fantasy side rather than, even though there's giant robots, like it was more on the fantasy side of things for me. So it's harder for me to get into, but I was still excited. I was really excited to do that because again, it was something from like when I was growing up, that we got to do again. So that was really cool.
And in terms of your more long running, bigger characters, who do you think that you personally relate the most to?
Of the long running ones, Mion might be it. As far as relation, outside of all the stuff that happens. I mean, just personality wise, yes, not all of the other things. Yeah. I think her and probably Roxy are closest to me as a person. Mion is like from the country, but she also has a lot of responsibilities, and she's a little on the rougher side, and that's like 100% me. Like, I grew up like in a small town, and I had to take care of my family a lot, and I had all of this stuff going on, but I've never taken myself too seriously, and I've never really been one to finesse anything. So I relate to Mion a lot in that way. And then Roxy, kind of similar. She's more of like just she doesn't really give too much of a shit about what other people have going on. But also, and I don't know how far you've seen into Mushoku, or if you watch it, but she does go back home at a point, and that was a really difficult scene for me to do, because I have sort of like complicated family relations and everything too. So that was really hard to see her go through that and see that side of her, because I relate to her in that way too. So I would say, as far as like me as a person, those are probably the two closest ones.
What about the other Tohka in Assassination Classroom?
In Assassination, she was so much fun. She's just like, she is probably a more fun, and the way that I play her too is like the more fun side of me, right? Just the sort of joking around, but also getting into mischief. Like, she's great. And I love that she's all about like the espionage and getting to do those things. But yeah, she's more of that, like that fun, let's get it done, everything will be fine. Like, that's kind of how she approaches stuff, and I definitely do that too.
You have a cool character in the Index.
An Index?
Baylo.
Oh man, Index. Oh, I haven't thought about her for a minute. She was cool. I wish she showed up more. She really was kind of there for a minute, and when I did it too, they were like, we don't know how much she's going to show up. But they're like, we'll put you on it just in case she does. And then she didn't really, but, I would say that me coming for that character was definitely not too much was not a surprise. That's like 100% like, that's the characters that I book is right there. So yeah, she was really cool to do. Oh, I'm sorry, I hit that. Yeah, she was a lot of fun to do. I just wish there was more of her. She kind of like bounced. But I mean, in a show like Index, you have so many characters. There's so many characters. That's just what happens. Same thing with One Piece. You have so many characters. People can only show up so much. So yeah, she's pretty cool. Just wish she was around.
But what about with I guess Kanan is pretty big too.
Which one?
Kanan and Love Live.
Oh, yeah, oh my gosh. I was uh again, well, again, she's like older sister, right? Like trope. So that was pretty much right in my wheelhouse, but generally, especially at that time, I was still not getting a ton of teenagers. Like usually they're a little older. I play more people in their 20s or 30s. And so even if the trope is the same, the age group was a little different for me. So I was really excited to anytime I get to play like a teenage girl, I'm like, yes, please. Um, so that was great. I was really excited to because I don't think I had done one for a minute when I came in to record her. So that was great. And of course I love the franchise. I played a mobile game. So that was really cool. But also I was like, this is, even though she's a teenager, I was like, this is absolutely my wheelhouse. Like this character is what I do, right? So I could see it in that way. And then I think most of us anyway on the cast are like really into Love Live.
Mhm.
So Love Live, excuse me. You have to say it. They would correct us all the time. Love Live. Okay, Love Live. The Love Live. You have to hit the live. Um so a lot of us are fans. And so we were all super stoked to do it. And my favorite is actually Hanamaru, which is Megan's character. And then Megan's favorite is Hanamaru. If you go to Megan's, because I've gone to her house and stuff, she has a Hanamaru shrine
Mm.
that's massive. It's massive. It's huge. She has potentially every product they've ever made that's Hanamaru. And it's pretty intense. But yeah, that we got to do. They stayed around for a while. And of course, we have new girls now, and they'll always have new girls. But being able to do quite a bit of content with them, that was great. I loved being able to do that much with them, and I know that we haven't graduated. They haven't graduated those characters necessarily, but I know at this point it's not going to be like we're going to do another season or anything. We're done. We're has-beens. But it was great while it lasted, and I'm so fortunate to have been a part. Yeah, it's awesome.
Is that the main case where you've gotten to do musical stuff with a character?
I have, well, Tohka sang actually, technically. I've sung a couple of times. I've sung because well, Love Live, we didn't dub any of the songs, but also at the time we were doing it, they weren't sure.
Oh,
So that was another consideration they did make, is when they were casting it, they were like, we want people that can sing, just in case. But then they were like, no, we're not gonna dub them. But there was something called, shoot, I'm gonna find it. Riddle Story of Devil. That's what it was. We
oh
sang
yeah.
a whole ending song for that. So I did get to sing that. I got to sing Tohka's song when she does the thing on stage, which that was that was an experience, because she's a cappella for a minute, which was a little terrifying. But we got it done. It's fine. I am also in Show by Rock, and again it was a similar thing. They were like, Caitlin was like, I don't know if this character is going to sing, but you're gonna play her just in case she does. She doesn't, unfortunately, but she's a mermaid named Wendy. And but their band never had any songs in the show. They were only in the game. But it was close. It was close. What else have I sang? It's always the most random things, I think, because Riddle Story of Devil was not at all a musical show. It just so happened that all of the characters sing a song at the end. It was very random. So hopefully I would like to be in more musical shows, and so hopefully that'll happen, but I haven't done too much.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And is there or was there any aspiration for you to move to LA?
I get asked to move to LA. I have so many friends there at this point. I have a huge amount of friends in LA. They constantly are begging me, please, please, please move to LA. I did stay in LA actually for a summer. And I worked at Bing Zoom actually. And I stayed with Sean Schemmel. And because he's a dear friend too. And but I mean, it's a hard sell on me. All right. Because again, let me tell you, since I was raised in a smaller town, I'm much more used to the country than the city. Even where I'm living right now which is the suburbs, is still like a little too much city for me. And so going to LA and being in LA is like the most city you can get. And it's a little hard on me. The traffic's terrible, and honestly even just going around, and the people in LA are generally terrible, just not a great time. But and of course there's great stuff out there though too, like you have so many experiences that you can have in LA. There's all of the entertainment, all of the art, all the culture, the restaurants, the melting pot of all of it. And of course I have 1 million friends out there. So I never have to rent a room. I always just stay with somebody. But it may eventually, if I really feel like that's what I have to do in my career, which I have a few different paths, because I'm an actor, but I'm also a producer, I'm also a director, and seeing which one of those I really want to flourish more. It's a tough decision, because it's a hard move to make, and then you have to really be in it for the long haul, because everything's just going to be hard. The amount of rent is so much higher out there, though Dallas is catching up. It's not doing us any favors anymore. Before it was like, it's so much cheaper here. Now it's like, well, it's going up and up. But I think I've considered it for sure, but it's such a tough call to make, just because as far as the lifestyle of it, career wise, it'd be like, boom, like, it would open up a lot of things. But life wise, it's kind of like, I really hate it, like I just hate physically being there so much. So it would have to be such a huge swing in the right direction to get me to go that way. But yeah, I have friends texting me all the time that are like, when are you gonna move out here? I'm like, not yet. Yeah, because a lot of people did move over the pandemic, which is interesting. They probably got good rates on their stuff actually, because it's all went straight back up. But yeah, I want to say that a good chunk of my friends have moved out to LA, so that has been a little sad, and I haven't gotten to physically see a lot of them during this whole time. But so as far as the community, like I have a great community out there that I know I would have if I did move, but it's just such a much bigger decision than any one thing, right? Yeah.
Well, personally, for me, it is a little surprising that you haven't been part of Fire Emblem Heroes yet, because there's several types.
There are, and I've never gotten an audition for that one, but also I've managed to, and really I'm testing my luck on this, I've managed to go my whole career without ever having an agent or anything.
Oh.
I don't have any representation. It's all just me.
Wow.
So it is more difficult that way to get auditions, because some of the time too, each studio has their own roster, and but aside from that, they also just send to agencies, because agencies are a great resource, because they've done some of the work for you. They've vetted the talents already. You basically have a list of talents to just send the thing to, and you can call it a day, and you don't have to work as hard on it. And to my own detriment, I've never gotten an agent. So I really need to work on it. And I always keep saying that I need to work on it for years. That I should really get an agent. But that's part of it too, is that especially with when you're out of your region. If I had an agent, maybe I'd be getting these auditions, but as an individual, it's a lot harder to do that. Not to say that I haven't, I know Cup of Tea, like, and that's who does it. I know them, and I've gotten like a couple of things from them here and there, but not at the volume I would have if I did have representation. But that would be great. Any Nintendo property really would be amazing. But yeah, like getting more LA work would be, because I play a lot of video games. I love video games. I'm playing Tales of Arise right now.
No.
So like, being able to be part of those projects, I would absolutely adore. But it is a bit difficult. Again, moving parts, being here, needing the representation, and then getting those auditions, and then them getting used to me. It's like a whole process of things, right? So yeah, I mean, one day maybe.
So is there anything else that's upcoming that you're part of that you can safely talk about, or?
Shoot, I forgot what it's called. No, Jonathan Rigg is the director, and Jordan Cruz is the lead in it. It's the one where he's trapped in an otome game. I know the premise of it. He's trapped in an otome game.
Okay.
But play the mom in that. That should be out. I mean, Day Life is coming. Of course. And they didn't replace anybody in that, so I'm back. What else is coming out? I haven't gone in. I've mostly been finishing up stuff as far as lately. But yeah, I think that those are the two main things. I want to say there's something else happening this season that came back. No, I don't know. It's slipping my mind. But the main things are Daily Live is back. So obviously that's gonna be probably the biggest thing I have this season. Unless, I don't know, somebody decides to pull me in for something else. But yeah.
My final question then is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
What I want my legacy to be? Oh my God. That's a really tough question that I've never asked myself. So this is hard. I guess like, although you know what, I have thought a little bit, like going back to comedy, and I was thinking just the other day how I would love to be much more of a comedy actor and going in that direction. I was actually just thinking about that the other day, and working towards that. But I think that being a person and an entertainer that can bring some light to people's lives and making them better, I think that's the main thing that I want to do. Because when I consume entertainment, that is the thing I think about, is I don't know how I would go through my day if I didn't have these things, right? And a lot of people may not think of entertainment in that way, of like how important it is to people's lives to be able to watch your favorite show when it comes on Tuesday nights or whatever, and keeping that week to week while you're trying to get through life and get through work and get through everything. And that's so important. So I think that that's the sort of person I would want to be, and the sort of thing I would want to leave behind for people, is to just make their lives better however I can.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you got to do this.
Yeah, I know. It was great. You had great questions, and you knew so much about things I haven't thought about so long. It's just like really quizzing me on the last decade. But yeah, like that was great. Yeah, that was a great interview. Thank you so much, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Have a good rest of your night.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Bye.